It is Bones. And in this one, let's go ahead and take a look at some custom work that I have done. Now, I have been fiddling around with this one for a while. As usual, you never know where you will get your inspiration from. Came across this idea scrolling through Instagram. Somebody made a kit bash of a Black Adam using different parts from the two versions that Mcfarlane has released. Now, I wasn't a huge fan of either of those iterations, and seeing as how we're kind of working on a time limit now that we know McFarlane only has a little bit more than a year left with the DC license, I thought I'd jump in and make my own interpretation of this Black Adam. Now, of course, we did get two versions already. We got that original Page Punchers version, which never was really a big fan of. We also have this Endless Winter version of Black Adam, which I really disliked even more than the Page Punchers. Just wasn't a huge fan of the face sculpt. They forgot to give him the pointy ears, which I think I fixed on this one. And all around, just was never a big fan of it. Now, they did give us a Big Cheese, Shazam, originally known as Captain Marvel, using this same body mold. Now, once again, this was McFarlane's first shot at Shazam. So while both of these could pretty much work in your DC collection, neither one of them really ever sat well with me. Now, I don't really remember who it was that I saw that did that kit bash on Instagram, but of course I had to try it and add my own little touches. Now, although this is mainly a kit bash, there was a little bit of custom work and repainting that I had to do, a little bit of hard sculpt with some epoxy, but finally I got him pretty much down to the way I wanted him. Now, this did take parts from both releases, from the Page Punchers and from the Endless Winter, and pretty much made my ultimate Black Adam. Seeing as how I was never a big fan of the original releases. Both of those, of course, being more modern takes on the Black Adam character. Now, I know him more from DC Universe Classics and from the comic books, which show him in a more comic book styled uniform, while McFarlane went with the more sculpted, more added detail, new era versions of Black Adam. But altogether, it was not too hard. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at this guy. Now, right off the bat, as I said, I just wanted a more streamlined Black Adam. That Page Punchers just looked kind of misproportioned and also had a cape. While the Endless Winter version, I think, was executed poorly with the way the Thunderbolt was done on the front of the uniform. I don't mind the added texture and little details that they did with the body. I really was hoping for a more classic costume, but this guy came out pretty good. Now, there was a couple of things I'll talk about. This is the upper torso from the Page Punchers and the head sculpt, but the trunks, the legs, the arms are from the Endless Winter. Now, one thing I had to do was find a shoulder bushing that would fit and still give a movement. As you can see, you could still move the shoulder joints around to give them that front shoulder or that wide stance that you want from your villains. But I could not find one that had a little bit of sculpt detail. So while the shoulder disc is a little bit clean and doesn't have any sculpt detail in it, it looks black. So it fits right in. And as I said, you could get a lot of movement in that shoulder for different posing and figure photography. Another thing I wanted to do was, for me, Black Adam usually has that open collar showing like his clavicle, the very front of his traps. And the other two versions that Mcfarlane did just never gave that look to me. So although I did have to do a little modification and painting, I did get that look that I wanted with the open collar. Plus, I much more preferred the way they executed the Thunderbolt on this page puncher version. Now, it did come with some difficulties, and that was that you had some clasps that were here on either side of the chest, and you had the big plug in the back that was going to leave a gaping hole in the back, which of course is going to be unsightly. So that is where the epoxy came in. Now, I did cover up those plug holes in the front and then did a little bit of sculpting just with a tool to kind of add the lines and a little bit of grain. But in the back, it was a lot more difficult. Had to add a lot of epoxy and then sculpt in the back muscles, showing off the lower trapezoids and the upper lats. But in the end, once it dried up and I was able to paint it, it did match very well. So I'm really proud of the way that back came out. Covered up that big hole and gave him a really nice, aesthetically pleasing wide back. So besides that, I did go back when I took them all apart and put them back together. I did do all of the mods that I showed you guys in my Ultimate Superman mods. If you want to check out that best of mods video, it is on the channel. So that gave them a lot more range of motion in the waist, the full tilt-a-whirl, gave them a pretty nice forward crunch, as well as leaning back and twisting to get them in cool poses. Of course, this is a must-have when you're doing figure photography and posing. And I also did the mods on his thighs to give him that complete range of thigh swivel so you could move his legs around and get him in some pretty cool action poses. So all in all, he came out really good. Once again, the head sculpt I much more prefer. So in the complete package, it works really well. You still retain articulation, looking down, looking up, right to left, and of course, tilt the head for some attitude. So all in all, this ended up being one of my favorite projects that I've been doing in the recent months. This pretty cool Ultimate Black Adam. Now, as I said before, the inspiration behind this is because just like the DC Universe Classics version, we kind of wanted a more streamlined comic book style costume. So I took a lot of the things from this DC Universe Classics Black Adam and ported them onto my custom. Now he does have this Egyptian scarab necklace that I have not lost, which is pretty cool. He stayed with his accessory, but this also fits well onto my custom, just to add a little bit of spice to figure photography or display. Now, we know that Mcfarlane is working on the last days of his DC run, and we did get our second or third shot if you don't count the movie Shazam. So this was his newest take on Captain Marvel Shazam. Now, a lot of people tend to really prefer this version, and I do think that this will be a key in if we ever get one more shot at Black Adam. The reason being, if you remove the cape, change the colors, change the head sculpt, you can have a real quick and easy Black Adam using this Earth 2 Superman body buck, just the way they did for Shazam. We can get a classic comic book style Black Adam. So fingers crossed that Mcfarlane does that for us. But if not, I do have my custom, which I really enjoy. Now, he works a lot better going up against this original release of Shazam. They have the same kind of, sculpted out textured costume. And if we ever get that second Black Adam version on this body buck, I'll have something to display this Shazam with. Now, one tip I did find out, and that was that I was doing a custom on that smiling Superman, and the hands were just too huge, as well as the wrist joints. And I know that that was a big issue with this Shazam, is that the wrist joints were red instead of being flesh tone. Well, it just worked itself out. And since I did that custom Superman and I removed those big wrist joints, they fit perfectly onto this second Shazam. So now I have flesh colored wrist joints that don't break up the color scheme and work perfectly. The size, although it was big for that Superman figure, they fit perfectly on this Shazam figure. So you don't have to put up with those red wrist ball joints. You can swap them out for these flesh colored one, and it really finishes off that Shazam figure. So anyways, guys, pretty much that's it. Just a little custom kit bash Black Adam, but something that I am really happy with. So you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.